AI allows us to jump capability boundaries. All of us have capability boundaries, right? AI breaks those boundaries. AI allows us individually and organization to jump boundaries.
Today's guest is Greg Shove, CEO of Section and 7-time startup founder with 30 years in tech. He's led companies through the e-commerce, cloud, mobile, and AI waves, and now specializes in transforming organizations for the AI era. He was named one of Edelman's AI Creators to Know 2025.
We all as humans have biases. We all have blind spots. We all have a set of experience that informs our decisions and our judgment. I think it's irresponsible now for any executive who works for me. If you're making a medium to high stakes decision, I think it's irresponsible not to talk to AI.
What are some of your typical advice or scenarios that leaders can do now in order to use AI as a thought partner more?
Write on a post-it note, ask AI, stick it on your monitor. That's what I did for 2 years. Move away from Google. I don't care which AI you use, but just get out of the habit of using Google all the time for knowledge search.
Many people are kind of like afraid about their jobs when thinking about AI.
The people who are most scared about AI are the people that use it the least. The people who use AI a lot can see its value and can see its shortcomings. And they don't think they're very worried about losing their job. Do not let your employer determine your AI future. You own your future. You own your AI future. If we keep using AI as much as we're using it now, probably more, there's 4 different outcomes, and all of them will happen. Here's what they are.
Hello guys, welcome back to another new episode of the Tech Journal podcast. Today I have with me Greg Shove. He's the CEO of Section, a company that is trying to train people to get up to speed with AI and implement that in their companies, enterprise or startups. So Greg also is a multi-time co-founders. He has successfully led 7 companies as a CEO. I think mostly or not all are in AI. I'm not sure, maybe later Greg can clarify that. So welcome to the show, Greg. We're really looking forward to talk to you today about all about AI and how we can make AI rollout successful.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, those 7 startups. Now, that was 7 startups over 30 years. So they weren't all AI startups. Otherwise, I would have been really busy the last 2 years. Now, I'm currently CEO of one AI company and founder and chairman of another AI lab, a development lab. And those other startups were all tech startups. Starting 30 years ago in Toronto, were my first entrepreneurial venture in Canada.
Greg, I always love to invite my guests to maybe share a little bit more about you by telling us any career highlights or turning points that you think we all can learn from that.
Oh, yes. So many. When you're as old as I am, you've got a few pivotal moments in a career. I'd say one was when I was in Toronto and I was talking to a mentor and about how I wanted to be. I was in tech already. I'd worked for a Digital Equipment Corporation, doesn't exist anymore, and Sun Microsystems does not exist anymore. And I was thinking about a career as an entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for anybody else. And I was talking to this mentor, and he said, "Listen, what are you doing in Toronto?" He said, "There's a grocery store in Palo Alto, California called Molly Stone's. And you would go to Molly Stone's on Saturday morning, do your grocery shopping. You're going to meet more people in tech than you'll meet all a year in Toronto." And I thought, oh, that's actually pretty good advice. So I got lucky. I got into Stanford Business School in Palo Alto, obviously, and I stayed afterwards on a student work visa and eventually converted that, into an H-1B. And that, that was a pivotal moment. I mean, I put myself as close to the action as I could. Other pivotal moments, really, the biggest ones where we learn are failures. And so I think that, I've had at least a couple companies that I talk about, not make it, and probably more that I don't talk about. And so, listen, I think failure is a great teacher. And one of the things I love about Silicon Valley is that we don't punish failure. We know that innovation, entrepreneurship, trying to build new products and services is really hard, and it usually does not work. But we don't blame people for that. We often want to back them again, right? We want to try to help them a second time or fund them a second time and so on. So for me, I'd say just the resilience, the pivotal moments are those failures and the resilience that you have to develop to survive, those failures and take them in stride and not have them knock you too much off course. I'd say the other is hiring great people. And again, it sounds like a cliche, but it's hard to hire people, and it's particularly technologists. But when I've hired great engineers, great developers, great product people, my businesses have always benefited disproportionately by the one hire. So really spending time and effort and make those one or two critical hires, especially if you're building a new product, a technology product. You need an amazing, software engineer, and you need an amazing product kind of front end guy, guy or gal to help bring that product to life. And so when I've really found that special person, I try to keep working with them, again and again, because I know how good they are and how transformative they are. So just being open to really having the others are the reason you're successful is how I think about it. And, your success is really a representation of how well you hired and motivated and worked with other people who are likely more talented than you are.
Before we continue, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Unleash, who helps engineering teams ship code faster with less risk using feature flags. Let's hear what they have to say.
I'm Egil, CEO of Unleash. We believe that AI is having a tremendous impact of how software is being delivered. It's going faster than ever before. And if you look at the latest Dora report, we already see that more than 90% of developers are using AI in the day-to-day work. AI is getting software to production faster, but we're also seeing that the AI is impacting the stability of the software in production. By the end of the day, what you can say is that AI is getting more code to production faster, but at the same time, more bugs is coming with it. Google is a cautionary tale. They talk about how more than 30% of their software is written with AI. At the same time, you'll remember this big outage that happened back in June this year, where a minor update in their backend services took down Google Mail, BigQuery, and basically half of internet, right? So if you go and read their postmortem after this incident, really what it says is that if this amount of change would be flag protected, the incident wouldn't occur in the first place. So feature flags are the fastest and safest way to roll back code in production. It always made sense for human written code, and with the AI assisted development, it makes even more sense. So this is what we call feature ops. So where DevOps is all about getting code into production, feature ops is all about how code operates in production after the time. This is why teams at Prudential, Wayfair, Visa, and many others are using Unleash as their feature ops control plane. To move fast, stay safe, and be in control. Learn more how to ship code faster with less risk at getunleash.io.
And now, let's get back to our episode. Yeah, I like that last sentence you gave, right? Others, the reasons you are successful, right? So I think definitely there's a lot to learn about hiring great people. And I think you mentioned about failures. I want to dig a little bit on this area because I'm always amazed by entrepreneurs who have done multiple, companies, right? Not all are successful. Maybe some, or not, like maybe not all of them are like kind of like failures, right? But like one or two are big success. But I think in the points when you had that failures, I think that's where your resilience, your determination, maybe some kind of your spirit as well, right? Because I think here in Asia, we are more risk averse. So we don't like failures as much as possible. But I think from your point of view, having done all this, how do you cultivate that resilience? How do you actually motivate yourself to come back to it?
Yeah, I think one thing you have to do, and I learned this the hard way, like I learned this later in life, you have to do a really good retrospective on why you failed. Like really learn from your failures. Because when you really examine failure and understand what went wrong in the business, let's say, or what went wrong in the product, what you'll probably realize is it wasn't all your fault. One of the reasons I think you can be resilient is you can realize that some of this was out of your control, or some of this was circumstance, some of this was timing, some of this was, maybe you didn't make the right decisions every time. You don't need to make the right decisions every time. I think failure is so hard on us because we take it too personally. And I think that we tend to want to move on from our failures very quickly. We want to sort of put our failures in the past as fast as we can. That's human nature. And I think that's fine. But I think you don't want to miss a step. And the step is examine your failures. Like spend a few hours, talk to the team, really, talk to your partner, your founder, your wife or husband, whatever, like really deconstruct and understand how did you get there? What went wrong? What did not go according to plan? And again, and when you do that, I think you realize, oh, you probably did a pretty good job, but it just wasn't, it wasn't meant to be, right? The timing, again, maybe the pricing of the product was off, and that was it, that was it, whatever it is, right? And again, I think this idea of resilience really comes from, don't take failure too personally, and know that you probably did a pretty good job. So you'll probably do a pretty good job the next time. You'll likely do a better job the next time because you'll have that much more experience, right? And maybe your timing will be better. Listen, one of the reasons I pivoted my business section to AI is that when I played with ChatGPT Plus on February the 1st, 2023, really for a couple hours, I really sort of played with AI, a generative AI, a chatbot. I just realized how amazing it was and how this was going to be a wave. And I'd never made any money, Henry, unless one of my companies has been positioned in a wave. Like when you can find growth, you don't have to execute flawlessly. You have to execute well enough. And then the growth, right, that's outside of you, the growth that is happening, regardless of what you do, if you're in that growth, you're probably going to be okay. And you're probably going to find some success. And so, I've only ever made money, meaning I've only ever been able to sell my companies when I've been able to grow them. And the growing is because I've been positioned in something that is growing. So the first was e-commerce. The second was cloud, and then mobile, and now AI. So when I really understood AI personally, I realized, okay, this is going to be obviously big. I'm not sure how big. I'm not sure, when, but this feels really big. And that's why, as I said, that's why I pivoted the company, and that's worked out great for us, right? We're growing now at 100% a year, and that's because we're executing well enough, but the growth is there. And the inverse of that, the opposite of that is if you're in a small market or you're in a market that is declining or is maturing, you really have to execute flawlessly because you're fighting over, a slice of pie that is shrinking. You're fighting over a market that is not growing. And so it just makes it that much harder. You really have to execute perfectly to get growth when you're in a market that's not growing. So I try to avoid those markets.
Right. The interesting point you mentioned about the timing, right, and the waves. So having gone through multiple waves, right, like what you mentioned, e-commerce and internet, and then mobile, and then now AI, right? How do you think AI wave is different than others, or is it similar? Or how much potential do you think this wave is going to be?
Well, I think we'll know in a couple years, first of all, meaning we'll get a clear answer in a couple years. It looks huge, obviously. It's also obviously overhyped. It looks huge because this is technology that I think is horizontal, meaning it crosses the whole organization. It crosses almost any knowledge worker job or role. That's one reason. Second reason is it's highly democratizing in terms of AI allows us all to be software engineers or to be writers or to be creators or to be data analysts, right? It is a horizontal technology that moves up and moves down the org chart. It opens up access across the organization, if you will, allows people that are siloed to get out of a silo, right? Think about a management consultant. Management consultant relies on a data analyst typically. Well, now a data analyst can be a management consultant with GPT-5 deep research, right? And frankly, a management consultant can be more self-sufficient and do their own data analysis now using GPT-5. So, it's just this really powerful technology because it allows us to flex in so many different directions as individuals and as teams or companies. I think about it, Henry, this way. It's one of the few technologies, maybe the only technology that allows us to jump capability boundaries. All of us have capability boundaries, right? We're constrained by our capabilities. And that makes sense. We can't do everything well. So we're a marketer or we're a software engineer or we're a product leader, right? We're typically not a marketer and a product leader, right? And organizations, companies have the same boundaries, and that's how we compete. We compete within our boundaries, right? As an organization, as an enterprise. AI breaks those boundaries. AI allows us individually and organization to jump boundaries. So it seems to be whereas, Slack, communication software doesn't really do that, right? Productivity software makes us more productive, but it doesn't really allow us to jump capabilities and so on. Other enterprise software is very valuable, but this feels like really transformative capability. And by the way, I don't think it's software. It's not really software in a traditional sense. And I think that one of the reasons that large organizations are struggling with AI and why AI is such a superpower to small organizations and small teams is because large organizations struggle with it. And one of the reasons they struggle with it, Henry, is they think this is like another software deployment. They buy AI, an enterprise LLM, ChatGPT for enterprise, Microsoft Copilot Pro, Google Gemini. They buy it like software and they deploy it like software, which means they turn it on, everybody gets access. That maybe they do a training or two, they do, a month of workshops or something, and then they expect, like other software, like an ERP or a CRM or project management software, they expect everybody to use it. But this is not software. This is like co-intelligence. This is like a cognitive service. It doesn't behave like software because it's not reliable, as you know. It hallucinates, which is Silicon Valley jargon for AI makes shit up, right? So it makes mistakes, it makes up stuff. It's not reliable. It's really powerful, but it's also kind of stupid at the same time, and it scares employees about their jobs. There's a lot of anxiety about AI when you think about particularly larger organizations. But you go talk to a startup CEO, you go talk to a software engineer on a small software team, they can't live without it, right? They can't imagine, working and living without AI, and especially here in Silicon Valley or anywhere that's a small team, because small teams don't have enough resources and small teams are always behind on the roadmap. Small teams have always have too many tickets, to clear, whatever it is. And so they want the assist. You go to a big company, that's not their world. Their world is about protecting their job and kind of doing things the same way they've always been done, which is why it's tough for bigger companies to deploy AI. We really have to break down this into small teams and get small teams to be AI enabled, like a startup would. Like today, you would not start a company and not think about, you're going to turn on AWS, you're going to turn on email, turn on, document sharing, and you're going to turn on AI, and you're going to start your company.
I think there are a lot of great points that you mentioned just now. I like in particular, you mentioned about these capability boundaries that we can break through simply by using AI. And I like also the nature of AI, right? It's like using natural language for you to actually interface with it. Unlike other software, probably is more technical, slightly more clunky for some software, right? So I think this feels a little bit different. And your company as well, right? Section was not originally doing stuff on AI, right? If I'm not mistaken, you're doing more like, executive or education, online kind of training, those kind of stuff. And then you pivoted to doing full AI. So tell us, the pivot experience that you did, right? First of all, like what was the rationale behind it? And secondly, how do you make that pivot actually successful? This comes to the learnings that maybe other organizations can also do in terms of, making them implementing AI successfully.
Sure. Well, as we talked about, the pivot was inspired by my realization that this was the next wave, right? There's something that would provide growth. Also, you're right. The original business of Section was management education, online management training, because we felt, and we still feel that management training, teaching people strategy, teaching people better management techniques and so on, those are accelerants. They help people's career. They accelerate careers. Great, business schools, right? MBAs, executive education from business schools. Those, partly it's the credential, but partly it's the actual knowledge, right? The upskilling that you get. They are career accelerants. When I used AI for the first time, my realization was this is the new accelerant, that in the short term, meaning the next 5 years, knowing how to use AI would be a personal career or professional accelerant. And I realized, okay, management training is an accelerant, but this is the new accelerant and no one knows how to do it. So if I go early and fast, I can be, a school that teaches AI basically and provide that acceleration, to millions of others. Because the world always takes a while to adopt these technologies. It does not happen overnight. It's happening very quickly with AI, I would admit. a billion users by the end of this year for ChatGPT is kind of an amazing number, more than 10% of humanity. It is happening quickly, but still, a lot of people need to be sort of supported, upskilled, and frankly, their anxiety has to be lowered to use AI successfully. So that's really the inspiration for the pivot. The lesson about pivots, and I've done a lot of pivots because when you do 7 startups, you end up doing a lot of pivots, too many maybe. But the only way to pivot is to be all in. The only way to pivot, in my opinion, as a startup, you can test, you can experiment into it, meaning you need to develop the confidence and the evidence that your pivot is the right decision, right? It is the right direction for the company. But once you've made that decision, so you can be cautious to a point to get to the decision. Once you get to the decision, you personally have to lead from the front and you can't go back. You might keep, and we had to do this at Section, and I've had to do it in my previous companies and my previous pivots. You might have to keep the old business because you need the revenue, right? And you might want those customers as well for the pivot. So you might keep what you have. So this is hard for teams to keep what they have and then to pivot. But the pivot, my point about the pivot is you're committed. You're not going to go back. You're going to harvest or wind down the old business if you have one, right? And we did at Section. We had a very good management training business, and we wound it down over the last 2 years. We let it atrophy and then kind of closed it down. But you've got to be committed. So once I was all in on AI, there was no choice. And the rest of the organization had to follow my lead. Otherwise, they couldn't work at Section. And I had skeptics, for sure, inside the organization. You always do with a pivot. You always do. And that's your job as a leader, is to win them over or ask them to leave. You can't afford to have one person really, on the team that after, a month or 2 or 3 months, depends how big your company is, but you can't carry too many doubters or skeptics, along for the ride. It won't work because people are going to be anxious. People are going to be anxious. They're going to be scared about the pivot. Will it work? Is this a crazy idea for my CEO because he woke up or she woke up one morning, with this crazy idea, or is it real? Like, is this a pivot that, that we're going to do? And so, yeah, commitment is everything to me for pivots.
Yeah, personally, I've been through some pivots as well. So always an uncertain time, especially for employees, right, who were probably not consulted or discussed in so many of those meetings where you wanted to decide to pivot, right? So thanks for sharing that. To be all in, right? So once you decided, you want to commit to that, to be all in. So you mentioned about skeptics. I think even though many people are raving about AI, how great it could be, but there are also some skeptics, right, out there. People who think that, AI can still hallucinate, can make wrong decision, make catastrophic result as well. We've seen it sometimes in the news or over Twitter, social media. And you yourself personally gone through this realization that AI can be a thought partner for yourself. And I think in one of your quote, you mentioned AI is like your testosterone to the brain. I kind of like that term. So maybe to remove some doubts that people have from these skeptics, right? So tell us why you think AI is such a good thing as a thought partner and something that everyone should, try to embed in their daily life.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to answer the first part of your question. I don't think we should necessarily be skeptical about AI, but we should be sort of clear-eyed. We should not drink all the Kool-Aid. There is a lot of hype coming from Silicon Valley. This idea of we're going to build AGI or SSI, super intelligence, right? And really, that's a story that they're using to raise capital, huge amounts of capital, right? OpenAI has just announced that they will lose over $100 billion by 2030. It's just unheard of amounts of capital and losses for a single private company. So, but listen, AI will have a lot of unintended consequences. AI will continue to hallucinate for at least for another year or two, as far as we know, maybe forever. AI will not handle every personal interaction successfully. So we will see more lawsuits related to, self-harm and suicide. when people are using AI as a therapist, and so on and so on and so on. We'll see lawsuits probably from parents about how dumb their kids are because they didn't go to school, they just used AI. We'll see all kinds of crazy sort of lawsuits and consequences of AI. So I think we need to be, as leaders, smart about it. We should be optimistic, but we should also be pragmatic, and we shouldn't just think it's all going to be great. Listen, energy prices are going up in certain parts of the United States because of the demand that data centers are pulling from the energy grid. So there's a real consequences here to our adoption of AI. So I think we should be pragmatic and we should be balanced in our view of AI. What I do think is AI has superpowers. And when properly used, when we drive AI, when we steer AI, it can be really valuable. And you're right. One of my favorite use cases is AI as a thought partner. I think it's irresponsible now for any executive who works for me, any executive, if you're making a medium to high stakes decision, about hiring someone or a product roadmap or a pivot or a board meeting, anything, any medium to high stakes decision, and at home, a parenting question or a health question, I think it's irresponsible not to talk to AI. I'm not saying do what AI says. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we all as humans have biases. We all have blind spots. We all have a set of experience that informs our decisions and our judgment, but those set of experiences are quite narrow when you think about all of human experience. We have decision frameworks that we rely on just because they're the ones that work for us in the past, but we don't use all the decision frameworks available to us. We use the ones that we know how to use, right? So AI has none of that, meaning AI does not have blind spots. AI, if properly steered or managed, AI can use any decision framework. AI can cross boundaries, as I already talked about, capability boundaries. AI crosses countries, AI crosses languages and cultures, AI crosses industries, AI crosses functions. AI can be a personal coach and a business coach at the same time, and so on. So I think that for any decision that has high stakes, and that could be, again, as I said, what to do with your kid who has these symptoms, and a temperature of 102 degrees as a parent, or, how to prepare for a board meeting as an entrepreneur, I think you should be spending 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes talking to AI about it and uploading the business plan to AI or the board deck or the photo of your kid in terms of, the symptoms or whatever it is, right? The photo of the house you might want to buy, whatever it is. Talk to AI about it. AI is a very effective thought partner. Again, you're not going to do what AI tells you, but my guess is you'll be able to improve or optimize many decisions. And at the very least, you'll be better prepared to have a conversation with someone else about that decision. So that might be with a doctor, that might be with a board member, that might be with a partner or co-founder. If you're having a disagreement or a difficult decision about the product roadmap or about, a customer, whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's the universal use case. And by the way, the data shows this. This idea of AI as a therapist, AI as a coach or companion, those are emerging as some of the top use cases for AI. I think it's AI superpower, actually, Henry. I think it's the surprise sort of hit, if you will, for AI. This use as a personal coach or therapist or thought partner, someone to talk to who's pretty smart and will listen to us, because AIs are trained, right, to listen to us. AIs are trained probably to be too flattering, and that's why they hallucinate, because they're trained to give us an answer kind of no matter what. So we have to learn to use AI the right way, and we have to know that AI is really sort of playing us. AI wants to be liked by us. So we have to be aware of that. I'm tired of how many times AI has told me how smart I am. I'm not that smart, but AI just keeps telling me I am, right? So, again, that's why we have to be smart about this, and we have to have a balanced perspective on it. When we know that AI behaves a certain way based on how it is built, how it's designed. But again, very useful. It's a use case that I'm not sure people want to pay that much for. I don't think companies want to pay for AI for us to use it as a thought partner. And I think companies want to pay for AI to make us more productive. So we write more lines of code, or we create more marketing briefs or whatever it is, right? But yeah, I think it's a great use case, and I think everyone should be using AI, as I said, as a thought partner. You should be talking to AI. That's a great way to interact with AI. When you think about AI as a thought partner, do it while you're commuting, or you're in your car, or when you've got some downtime, right? Just get your phone out and use one of the AI apps on your phone. Advanced voice mode and GPT is just fantastic.
Yeah. So I think the keyword here is a thought partner, right? So you're kind of like not outsourcing fully, the answer, the decision. And in the end, you kind of like have to be the one accountable making the decision. And I personally also have, used AI in so numerous scenarios for learning, explore ideas and all that. I think it's great to kind of like open up your perspectives. And sometimes it could be just curiosity on certain topics, right? And from there, maybe you can learn something new and, improve the ideas that you have. And you mentioned in your companies, you said that it will be irresponsible for leaders or the executives not to use AI. I'm pretty sure in most of the companies, apart from using maybe just a simple chat GPT and all that, maybe many leaders are still not, how should I say, natural in using AI in their day-to-day work. Maybe what are some of your typical advice or scenarios that leaders can do now in order to use AI as a thought partner more and improve their decision making or improve their performance as a leader?
Yeah, sure. I think it's easy to get started. First of all, get the app. Like, I'm surprised how many executives don't have a premium account, first of all. So they're using, free AI is pretty good, right? GPT-5 freemium is, or Claude, they're all pretty good, the free products, but pay the extra $20. It's only $20 a month. Get the additional features, get the mobile app, get it on your phone. In fact, what I did recently, actually, Henry, is I put the GPT-5 widget on my iPhone. So now it's occupying a good amount of my home screen of my iPhone is the GPT widget, which is just more prominent, on my home screen. I just use GPT more. So that's the first thing. Second thing is move away from Google. I don't care which AI you use. You can use Claude, you can use Gemini, but just get out of the habit of using Google all the time. For certain searches, what I call functional search, of course, use Google. When is this restaurant open? Or, those kinds of searches, very functional searches. Google's probably still the fastest and best source of truth. But for knowledge search, stop using Google and begin to use AI. And you'll notice the differences, good and bad. It's not always good. I'm not saying it's going to be better all the time. But again, change some habits, right? Third thing, very low-fi, very cheap. And this only costs like, a few cents. Get a Post-it note. Write on the Post-it note, ask AI. Stick it on your monitor. Stick it on your monitor. That's what I did for 2 years. For 2 years, I had, none of us likely in this audience, your audience, are AI native. AI native kids are in school right now, right? They're in middle school, maybe they're in high school. The kids graduating from college right now aren't AI native. They learned AI at school so they could cheat and get their homework done faster and submit more assignments. But it's really the kids in middle school today that will be the first AI native generation. The rest of us grew up in a world dominated by browsers and dominated by Google and search, right? And this idea of a search results page. And so we have to really remind ourselves to use AI. So I used a Post-it note for 2 years. In January, Henry, I bought a monitor and I call it my AI monitor. So it's on my desk in my workspace. It's right next to my main monitor. It's on the vertical horizon, so it's vertically oriented. And I have one browser open with 3 tabs. And every morning I turn that monitor on and I've got Claude, Anthropic Claude, Perplexity, and ChatGPT. And that's all I have on that monitor. And so I can see it all the time. It's right just to the right of my main monitor. It's in my line of sight. And every morning I can see Claude, and Claude says, "Good morning, Captain," because Captain is what I told AI to call me, right? Because I'm the captain, they're the co-pilot, right? But it's only cost $100 for that monitor, and it's kind of a hack. It's a cognitive hack, but it works. It reminds me to use AI, and when I have good work with AI, I cut and paste it from AI into my main workspace, which is my documents, my decks, my whatever it is, right? That I'm working on. So I like that. eventually we won't need to do this. Eventually AIs will be watching we'll be sharing our screens real time with AIs soon. And AIs will just be watching as we work and offering to help us. That is soon, in the next year or two. But for now, this is, I think, a good hack. And you can see where AI is going because, as you know, AI now has better memory, particularly OpenAI, and now Anthropic enabled memory recently for the Claude, chatbot. And memory, I don't see a lot of value yet, but we're going to see a lot of value from capabilities like AI memory because they'll really be able to, hold conversations for longer and remember things that we've talked to AI about. And so you can see where we're going here. Really, really powerful, sort of always on agent or, co-intelligence. But to get started, just get started and begin to move your behavior away from Google to AI. And that could be to Gemini, which is obviously Google's AI. It doesn't matter, I don't think. All these AIs are, I think, quite similar in capability at this point. If you're a software engineer, obviously, and for your audience, at least some of them, I'm sure they're already using coding copilots and maybe multiple. Eventually, I expect there'll be one or two winners, in terms of coding and software engineering. I find it interesting that the AI companies, and for good reason, because they see how many conversations are related to software, software coding and writing code. So they keep improving that part of the product. But software engineers are a small part of the knowledge economy. When you look at the knowledge economy, it's, huge, and a lot of other roles, marketers and salespeople and finance and HR. AI is not as good yet for those functions, right? It's still, because it hallucinates and it's not as easy to work with. But, these are AI companies. They're full of software engineers. And so they keep releasing better features for software engineers, right? OpenAI just released GPT-5 Codex this week, right? Or retire and go play golf. If you want to keep your head in the sand about this AI thing, you could try. If you're 45, I don't think it's going to work. If you're 60, I don't know what the retirement, you're in Singapore?
Yes.
What's the typical retirement age in Singapore?
62.
62, yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe if you're 57 or something, keep your head in the sand, just stay out of trouble and you can get to retirement and then you can focus on the golf game. I'm 63, but I wanted to keep working. I intend to work for at least 5 more years, and I live and work in Silicon Valley. It's a very ageist place. If you're not 28 years old and wearing a hoodie, you're an idiot. So, when I used a GPT for the first time, I very selfishly thought, for me, this is going to be great. I thought it would be great for the company, and that's why we pivoted. But my first reaction was, hey, this is great for me because I can maintain my cognitive edge. I can really keep working and at a high level because, as we age, our cognitive abilities do decline, and that decline accelerates after the age of 50 because I asked GPT and that's what it told me. So, I thought about it as this is the way I'm going to stay cognitively sharp. Now, you already kind of referenced this. There's a real risk that the opposite happens. If we over rely on AI, if we cognitively offload too much to AI, we won't stay sharp. We'll actually get stupid. And that is happening already. People are losing their minds to AI. And I would argue that this greatest risk when we're younger, kids in school and college or early career, where they are literally working with AI, cutting and pasting the answer, sticking it into the document, the deck, the report, whatever it is, and submitting it as their work. And that's not going to end well for anyone. It won't end well for the employee and not for the organization, because you'll have a lot of mediocre work being done by AI. And again, I worry a lot about this. I think that we are at risk of a whole generation of young people who over rely on AI and really, like we have with, the obvious example is GPS, right? No one can use a map anymore, and no one knows how to find their way in a city. They just use GPS on a phone, and that part of our brain has literally atrophied. That's kind of spatial processing part of our brain has atrophied in humans. So yeah, I think that we need AI in some ways. We are overwhelmed with data, content, feeds information, right? Our human brains have not changed much, as you know, Henry, in 70,000 years. They really haven't evolved that much. It's the same 3 pounds of cognitive capability, and we're overwhelmed with inputs. And so in some ways, as humans, we need AI to help us manage the cognitive load that the average knowledge worker kind of faces. But at the same time, as I said, the real risk is we offload too much and we stop thinking. And I have we're very clear about that at Section, at my companies. You can say it once, you can't say it twice. You say it twice, you probably won't be working at my company anymore. If you say, well, AI said we should do it, it's the worst thing to say. I will lose my shit if someone says that in a meeting or in an email or a Slack message. I will not tolerate it. Again, you can say it once, you can't say it twice.
Wow. So many tips, I think, are really great. In the beginning, you mentioned some simple hacks. In fact, it's not something, that is grandiose, right? It could be as simple as remind yourself to always ask AI because it's a new habit, right? I think most of the time, many people are very natural, asking Google search. So I think changing the habit into asking AI is one thing. And I think you also play around with different types of AI, right? So I think that could be another thing, right? Because some AI might be good on some particular tasks. And I think one other aspects about using AI is like experiment, right? Because I mean, as a start, you will be just asking questions, right? A lot of questions and answers. But then there are many other features that AI can also support, like, I don't know, like deep research, coding, or whatever that is, right? I think just play around and experiment and get the feeling, right? So I think that's very important. I want to understand a little bit more about when you roll out this into companies, right? Because many companies now, maybe not many, like a few companies now are trying to roll out AI fully to their employees. Companies like Shopify or Salesforce, right? They even advocate use AI first instead of hiring more people, right? And I'm sure similarly it happens in your company as well. But many people are kind of like afraid about their jobs when thinking about AI. They think, oh, if I use AI more, maybe my job it won't be safe anymore.
Yeah.
So how do you actually create this culture to everyone that use AI? How to make sure that they are still upskilled, they are like safe in terms of career. Maybe a little bit of tips here. How do you actually roll it
Sure.
out fully to the company? Yeah.
Yeah, great question, Henry. And listen, I'd say in the United States right now, almost every organization that I talk to is rolling out AI in some way to either a large part or the whole workforce. And certainly to the engineering and product development teams, absolutely, to marketing, to sales, and maybe the whole organization. And it's a struggle. I would also say that very few companies that I talk to are doing it well. Most are failing or stalling, really struggling. And it is for some of the reasons you said. First of all, the training is one time, and that's not enough. You must be continuously upskilling with AI because the AI capabilities are changing all the time, always improving. This will keep going on for the next several years, right? AI is getting better and better and better. This idea of taking one class and giving employees one class, it's not enough. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I think if you go back to the beginning of this, like, why are we doing AI as an organization? I think CEOs, then you referenced Shopify, Toby Luckey, CEO of Shopify, who published his memo to all employees, why you have to be using AI. And he also said in that, why are we doing this? And you need to have a why of AI. Because if you don't say to the organization, why are we doing this? Then all they're going to think is what you said. They're going to think, oh, efficiency, which is code for layoffs, right? Like if you don't tell people why AI, then they're just going to assume, well, you want the robots, you want the AI to do the work. And by the way, the media, that's been the narrative that the media has been feeding us for 3 years, right? The image we have of AI is coming for our jobs. And we're going to be unemployed, or we're going to be sitting on a beach, picking up a universal basic income check. I don't think that's going to happen. But this is what the media has been telling us. So of course, employees are anxious. Here's how I think about it. So establish your why of AI. What is the mission of your business? How does AI make that mission more possible? Whatever your mission is, if you're a hospital or a financial advisor or, a retail company, it doesn't matter. What is the company's mission? And then link that company mission to the AI, and that becomes your why of AI. It's what I call the AI manifesto. Everybody has AI rules and regulations, what not to do with AI. Don't do this, don't do that. You'll get fired if you do this. Okay, all that's going to do is discourage usage. It is so stupid for CEOs to be talking about AI rules. I know you need them. You need them. And your chief legal counsel and your security officer, you need to have rules. So you need to publish them. But you also need a manifesto. Why are we doing AI? How do we think about AI? Do we reward people for using AI? Do we celebrate people who use AI? Or do we accuse them of cutting corners or cheating? You need to be very positive and affirmative in the use of AI if you want people to use it. You also need to be honest. So my point of view in this, Henry, is there will be job loss. And not talking about it, I think, is naive and inauthentic. And I don't think your employees are that stupid. And by the way, your employees are probably using AI, maybe at work even, unsanctioned, or they're certainly using it at home, and they're realizing it's pretty powerful. It's not that good. Frankly, the people who are most scared about AI are the people that use it the least, is my experience. The people who use AI a lot can see its value and can see its shortcomings. And they don't think they're very worried about losing their job. So it's kind of this ironic, right? The people that don't use AI seem to be the most scared about it. But I think you've got to be honest with employees. Here's what I tell my team, and this is what I coach other CEOs. Go all in on AI. Pay for AI for everybody. Don't have people paying for it for themselves. That's dumb, right? It's not fair. You're going to get the productivity benefit as the employer, as the CEO. You're going to get the gain. Pay for the AI. That's the first thing. Do the upskilling, do the change management, encourage the adoption of AI, encourage best practices, right? Watch out for hallucinations. Don't cut and paste the AI answer into the document. Think about it, how what advice you're getting from AI, and then add your own judgment. And the final thing is tell your team, tell your company, your organization what's going to happen. And here's what I say. In a year, if we keep using AI as much as we're using it now, probably more. I want more AI in the company. I want all of us really optimizing ourselves with AI. If we do that, I think there's 4 different outcomes, and all of them will happen. Here's what they are. Some teams will be the same size. They'll be doing more work. Okay, that's one. Some teams will be smaller and doing the same amount of work, meaning AI made people more productive. We did not need more of that work. So we actually reduced the size of the team. That's going to happen in some teams. Some teams will actually be bigger with AI. As an example, my point of view is, because the business I'm in, software engineers and salespeople, because I'm building and selling a SaaS platform, software engineers and salespeople are the 2 of the most valuable people in the organization. If AI makes them more productive, I actually want more of them. I don't want less software engineers. Talk to any CEO, and what will they tell you about their roadmap? They're always a year or 2 behind on their roadmap. I've never found a CEO, right, in Silicon Valley who says, my roadmap, I've got everything I wanted today in my roadmap. I never heard that. Never going to. All you ever hear from a CEO is, or a head of product, is my roadmap is behind. I have more features. I have more roadmap I want built. If coding copilots or coding agents make software engineers twice as productive or even 15% more productive, I'm going to want probably more engineers, right? Salespeople the same. If AI makes salespeople more productive and more salespeople can hit their targets, do I want less salespeople? No, I want more, right? So some teams will be the same size, some will be smaller, some will be bigger. And the last thing is we're going to add some jobs that don't exist this year, right? And that's happened every year the last 2 years at Section. We've added new jobs that did not exist the year before because of AI. So those are 4, in my opinion, organizational outcomes that will likely happen because of AI. And I think the best thing is just tell the team, we don't know yet. Like this is a new thing. So I can't tell you the marketing team will be smaller or bigger. It might be the same size, might be smaller, might be bigger. We just need to go in this together, quite frankly. It requires some trust. And I'm going to upskill you. So no matter what happens, and again, the company has to pay for this, in my opinion, I'm going to upskill you. And so if I do have to lay you off, if I do have to shrink the size of a team, at least when you go into the job market, you're going to be an AI enabled employee. They'll be the most valuable employees, the most valuable candidates for a job. So that's how I think about it. And what I would say is if your employer is not doing that, then it's your responsibility. If your employer doesn't pay for your AI, pay for your own AI. And if your employer is not paying for your upskilling and your training, do it yourself. There's no excuse at this point. Do not let your employer determine your AI future. If they are clueless or they're hesitant or they're scared, that's not a reason for you to be. You own your future. You own your AI future.
Yeah. So in the end, I think our growth, our personal growth, our upscaling it comes back to us, right? I think we are the only driver. Obviously, company can support, right? Great companies with great culture, I think will be able to support our growth. But I think, yeah, we should not kind of like rely on just the company. I think many companies still think AI as like an efficiency play, right? So you mentioned about layoffs. I think it was in the news a lot of times. A lot of companies, including big tech themselves, AI providers, right, actually lay off people. And many people actually associate that, okay, AI means more layoffs. I'm going to lose my job, less employees, and all that. And thanks for mentioning those four possible outcomes that could happen when you roll out AI. So I think for those executives now who are thinking of implementing AI in the company, I think most of them probably the ROI thinking is like, okay, if I deploy these AI solutions, I'll be able to cut, some costs or maybe more efficient in some areas, which is probably like the naive way of calculating that. But what do you think, having worked on this area, how do you actually advise leaders, executives to actually see the ROI of implementing AI in that company?
Yes. I think that's exactly right for phase one. So what I mean by that is the McKinsey would use a language like efficiency and growth. My language is more crude. I say cut and create just because it's more memorable, right? How I think about that is there are two modes. There are two strategy modes for AI. One is efficiency, one is cutting. And it doesn't mean necessarily cutting people. It means cutting tasks, cutting workflows, cutting organizational inefficiency, and so on, right? Use AI to become more efficient. That is, I think, is the first phase of AI. And you're right, that's how most CFOs will justify it, right? CEOs are less interested in cutting, CEOs. CEOs want creation. CEOs want growth. So that is what happens next. By the way, you can do them at the same time. You can become more efficient and you can find growth at the same time, or you can stage them. Efficiency first and growth second. Create new products, create new services, create new revenue streams, create new jobs, create new markets. AI will enable that as well. As a leader, my opinion is you are responsible for both. And you're responsible for moving through the first phase, that efficiency phase or that cut phase. You are responsible for moving through that as fast as possible. The sooner you move through that, the lower the anxiety in the workforce, in your workforce. Frankly, the sooner you'll get the efficiency gains. And then most importantly, the faster you'll get to the next phase, which is creation, which is growth. And that's what your CEO cares about. So I want an efficient organization. Of course I do. And we're using AI every day at Section to make ourselves more efficient. I'm most excited about growth. I'm most excited about adding new products and services faster. I'm most excited about accelerating our roadmap so our software platform has more capability so I can charge more for it and drive more revenue. And so, we're trying to do both at once, but we did focus for the first year on let's make ourselves more efficient and let's eliminate, annoying workflows. Let's eliminate tedious workflows with AI and so on. That impacted a couple people in terms of jobs, not that many, but it did. Had to the team change because of that. Now we're focused on growth. We're adding headcount. We're adding probably less headcount than I thought we would because based on our rate of growth, we are more headcount efficient than we used to be. That's great, but we're still hiring people, obviously. And we're hiring in some cases, I said, new roles because we're beginning to create new jobs, right? Based on creating new products and services. So I think about this as two phases. As leaders, we want to get through that efficiency phase as fast as possible, because everybody, I think, will relax and calm down to some extent and realize, okay, it's not coming from my job. In fact, I can use this, and I can use this to start to create, bring more value. I talked to today, Henry, some people who are responsible for AI for hospitals here in the US. And we talked a lot about doctor AI note takers for doctors and nurses. So, when they're sitting with patients, pretty much every hospital now is almost everywhere in the US is using these AI note takers. And the idea being that if we do that, the doctor's not sitting at the keyboard, obviously typing notes. And so it's just like elevating the doctors didn't go to medical school to type notes, right? The doctors went to medical school to learn how to, diagnose and deliver care to patients. And so that's what we're trying to move everyone up to the top of their capability. This is the potential, and I think it is happening in a lot of jobs, a lot of roles where we can see how AI can elevate us. And that's what doctors are seeing, absolutely. And all these, I was talking to 4 healthcare leaders, AI leaders in healthcare companies, and they all said that universally doctors love these note takers. It's drudge work to sit there and type up patient notes. And it's not great. And you've probably experienced this. I certainly have, where you're sitting waiting for your doctor, and your doctor comes into the room, and the first thing he or she does is sits down at a computer and starts typing the keyboard, because they have to start making the notes, right? And what a better experience, what a more human experience if AI note takers are running and the doctor can come in, sit down and look at you and not look at your patient record that's on the computer and start typing. This has the opportunity to make doctors more efficient. It has an opportunity to make them more humanistic in their healthcare, right? Which is, I think, good for doctors and good for us.
Yeah, I like your maybe slogan, right? Cut and create, right? So I think
Yeah.
what you mentioned also, like cut doesn't mean always cut the number of employees, the number of roles, right? It could be efficiency, like workflows, tasks, mundane thing that you used to do, maybe by hand or something like that. But now you can actually kind of like use AI to augment the capability, right? And I think I love the example you mentioned about doctors, right? Like simply because they need to type in the past, right? That kind of like burdens the responsibility of a doctor, right? And kind of like consume some, cognitive load whenever they diagnose a patient, right? So I think that is a good possibility where AI can actually improve our cognitive ability. And I think creation is also another thing that I find once people realize the power of them being able to create a lot more new things just by, you know, partnering with AI and all that, I think they will somehow feel the excitement, I feel, rather than fear. Just like what
Yeah.
you mentioned, right? The people who play the least with AI is the one who fear the most about their job security. So I think by playing around and create more, I think you will get this excitement, which I find some people may need to try more in order to feel the benefit. The last section of this conversation, I want to touch on a little bit about your mission to actually train leaders to be more like AI, native leaders, right? And you have even the certification called ProfAI from Section, right? To
ProfAI, ProfAI.
Prof
Yeah.
AI, yeah, to actually train people. So tell us about this, I don't know, like certification or what kind of education that you think leaders need to take on in order for them to be ready to be AI native leaders.
Yeah. Uh, so ProfAI is a good example, I think, of AI powered education and how amazing it is. So we built a course catalog. We built a whole bunch of AI classes, and they're good classes. We were early, before LinkedIn and before Coursera and before, Udemy, Udacity. We were fast to build out an AI curriculum, and that was great. It was good for us for the first couple of years. But the reality is education, almost all education today is one size fits all, whether it be at high school or college or, upskilling, corporate training. It's like you make a course, you make a training experience, and then everybody experiences the same experience, which really is not very good. It is okay, but it's not great. AI powered education is mind blowing. It takes your breath away. The first time you experience an AI powered learning experience, it's amazing, because if it's a well built learning experience using AI, it immediately customizes the learning experience for the student. So a year and a half ago, I realized I needed to use AI to build an AI learning experience. And so we started building ProfAI. ProfAI is an AI application. It's built on top of ChatGPT and Anthropic Claude. We use their APIs. So the experience is powered by AI, and it teaches you how to become AI proficient. It teaches you how to find your own use cases. It coaches you on what workflows that you can use AI for. And it does all that because you tell it where you work. You tell it the job you're in, the company you're in, the location. You're in Singapore, you're in Hong Kong, you're in London, doesn't matter. By the way, Prof AI is already in 8 languages and we'll soon have many more. Like, we're using the power of AI to teach people AI. It's always available. It's basically an AI coach for people who need coaching. And I think we all do need coaching. There's only 1% of us who are AI experts. The rest of us need the coaching. So I'll never make another video class again. Why would I? Like, anybody who thinks we're going to be learning the way we learn today in 5 years really has no idea what's going on right now, and they have no real appreciation for the power of learning experiences that are powered by AI. So yeah, we love ProfAI, obviously. It's free for consumers. So if you go to prof.ai, you can get ProfAI for free as a consumer, as an individual. We are charging, obviously, teams and companies have to pay for it for their organizations. Again, I think if you play with ProfAI, you'll realize all of learning will move in this direction, meaning we'll teach everything using AI assistants or agents. And the value of that is they will know who you are and they'll be able to test you, assess your competency, and then only teach you what you need to know. And you won't have to sit through a 30-minute video to watch 5 minutes that you care about. You're not going to have to spend an hour on YouTube finding the 2 best videos to watch. It's such a waste of time. We'll never do that again in the future.
Right. So I hope you're successful in your mission to train more people to be more AI kind of like savvy. So Greg, it's been a great conversation. I only have one last question that I would like to ask you. This is kind of like a tradition in my podcast, which I call the question, the 3 technical leadership wisdom. Doesn't have to be tech, but it's more like a leadership thing. So if you can give this advice to us listeners, what will be the version of your 3 technical leadership wisdom?
I don't know if I have 3. I have one to start. It's all about doing what you ask others to do. And that doesn't mean you have to be able to do their job. But if you want your employees to be empathetic, if you want your employees to be committed, if you want your employees to have care for quality, have care for customers, if you have standards that you want your organization to meet, you must meet them. You must do all of that. You must treat them with empathy. If you want your organization to be AI enabled, you must be AI enabled. I see so much inauthentic leadership, and frankly, our employees see that. And so, and that's when the trust breaks, and that's when the alignment breaks. We, as leaders, we have to live our truth as leaders and lead the way we want our organization to behave. So, walk the walk.
Anything else, or that's it?
That's it. That's hard, Henry. One's enough. Do that, because here's the thing: you don't do it 5 days a year. The reason this is so hard is you have to do it every day. Leadership is not we have this archetype or myth of leadership, Steve Jobs, right? These moments of high drama, these moments of high impact leadership, the product announcement, or that's the myth of leadership. Same for military leadership, right? The single moment. That's not leadership. Leadership is everything that happens every day that no one sees.
Wow.
So I
very nicely.
only offer one piece of advice because it's a very hard piece of advice to actually do.
Very nicely put. I think it's a great reminder for all leaders out there. You need to walk your talk, right? So it's not like, okay, please do this, but you don't embody the behavior, you don't embody the thing that you are preaching. we all can see if leaders are inauthentic, right? And that's where probably the trust breaks, and you kind of like don't actually follow fully from the leaders. So I think, yeah, please try our best to be more authentic, walk the talk, and embody the kind of spirit that you're actually preaching. So, Greg, I think it's a great conversation. I learned a lot about how to use AI more, and people here, I'm sure they're kind of like inspired as well to try some of the things that you mentioned today. If people want to follow you or ask you more questions, is there a place where they can reach out online?
Yeah, sure. Just on LinkedIn. I can find me on LinkedIn, Greg Shove on LinkedIn, or go to prof.ai to get their access to an AI coach, or go to sectionai.com and you can find me. Yeah, I'll do whatever I can to help anyone prepare themselves to thrive in the age of AI.
Yeah. And I want to mention as well, Greg here is picked as like one of the top AI creators in 2025 by Edelman. So definitely you can follow Greg on social media, wherever you create, including your newsletter, Personal Math.
Yeah.
Right. So I find some great pieces that you wrote before. So I think definitely check out Greg's resources. So thank you so much for the time, Greg. It's been a pleasant conversation.
Yeah, likewise, Henry. Thanks for inviting me.